Oh, hello, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. This video I'll be talking about only one book, and that is My Heart by Semezdin Mehmedinović. This book was something that I finished after I finished reading Caritas Untitled, which I talked about in the last video, Caritas Untitled by Baldursdóttir. So, yeah, My Heart by Mehmedinović, translated from Bosnian to English by Celia Hawkesworth. I wanted to read this for quite a while now. I first knew about it from the BookTube Prize a few years ago when it still had the translated fiction category. But I was not assigned to the group that had this book, so I didn't get the opportunity to read this. And I couldn't find it until last year when I went to the National Library and I saw this book, and I was like, really, I was really excited about that because I've been looking for this book for quite a while, and I borrowed it and I got to savor it at home. And I finished it this year. So, My Heart is an autobiographical novel. It's about this man, this character named Semezdin Mehmedinović, and yeah, as I said, it is autobiographical. And as I was reading this book, it was really difficult for me to just kind of like separate the main character from the author, because there were many parts that felt really intimate, really personal, that it really does make you wonder, like, how much of this novel is actually biographical and how much of it is fictionalized. But for this video, I'm just gonna refer to this main character as if it is like a totally separate main character, just to make things simpler to describe this book. But still, I cannot deny, while I was reading this, there was that effect, the blurring between fiction and biography. That part was quite interesting. But anyway, back to what this book is about. So, background to the story in this novel. Semezdin Mehmedinović escaped from Bosnia in the 90s together with his family, his son Harun and also his wife Sanja, to the US because of the war that happened in Bosnia. And they have been living in the US for many years, more than a decade. And the present time that is described in this book is sometime in 2015 or so. Yeah, so that's the present time in this novel. So yeah, basically that's kind of like the background of it, how the character and his family ends up being at the US. They were from Bosnia, but now they live in the US, and that is going to kind of like set the theme of this book. So the first part, this book is separated into three parts. So the first part of this book is focusing on Semezdin himself. So Semezdin just experienced something harrowing, which was a heart attack, and this experience just sort of drives him to reflect on his experience living in a country where he's, that is not his homeland, and the nostalgia that he feels towards his home country. And it also makes him think about the fragility of life and the possibility of actually dying at a foreign land. Like, how does that, how does one reconcile with that idea? So the second part of this book concerns, or rather focuses more on his reflection on his son. The second part, narratively speaking, is more like a father-son road trip story, where Semezdin goes to another state in the U.S. Where his son resides, and the two of them have a bit of a road trip with a car across different destinations in Arizona, I think, if I recall correctly. And Semezdin describes what he sees along the way, at the same time just kind of commenting on what is going on with the American society politically at that time. And just for context, it was around 2015. 2016 was going to come, so those of you who know what's going on, like in 2016 politically, there was going to be a change in administration. Anyway, that was one part of the that was one aspect of the second part. Another aspect would be Semezdin's reflection on his relationship with his son, like the kind of distance that he has with his son as his son grew up in a totally different country. How his son was born in a different country, right? And how does that make him sort of grow apart from his son, and how he is trying to sort of connect with his son through some other meaningful ways. So that's the second part. And the third part of this book is mostly about his wife, because his wife just experienced a dreadful disease, and one of the consequences was that her memory was affected. And so this part becomes more focused on the more abstract idea of what would happen if you live somewhere far from your origin, and because of some practical reasons you could not return, and you had no choice but to stay somewhere far, and the only thing that you get to hold on to is the memory, right? But what if, for one reason or another, this memory is going to be destroyed? You are going to lose the ability to remember, and you don't even have a memory or any memory to hold on to. So how does that, how do you live with that, basically? So that is kind of like what I think is kind of like the focus of the second part, aside from his personal reflection on his relationship with his wife. Now, I have some thoughts about this book. So I'm just going to start with one aspect that I just didn't, I wasn't really able to latch onto. So much of this book, though it was divided into three parts, all those three parts, they were kind of written in this really similar style. All of them were narrated by Semezdin, the main character, which we can also connect to the author. And all of these three parts, they were written as a series of short vignettes. Vignettes that are kind of loosely chronologically connected together, but nevertheless are short sections of basically events. And this kind of writing style, it does kind of produce some kind of strange effect on my reading. Like, first of all, it kind of makes the pace feel quite fast. Especially if I were to read this book and I read many pages at one go, then because of how short these individual sections are, most of them, the reading experience felt to me quite instant, because I was able to finish many sections really quickly, right? It felt instant, and it felt kind of rushed, and it felt like I was on a binging spree, which was kind of awkward. It felt like I was moving really fast through the story that sometimes it was a little bit difficult for me to really experience the emotions that this book produces, right? And I find that if I really had to if I really have to experience this book, I had to manually force myself to slow down, like not to read too fast. So yeah, it's kind of awkward for me, because when I enjoy something, I want to keep on reading it. So with this book, I found that I had to, like, occasionally or more frequently stop myself so that I don't read too fast, because the sections are just really, really short. So yeah, that aspect of the writing just I would say didn't really work for me. And you know, one thing that this book really reminds me of is that I find it really similar to the works by Kim Thúy, who is a Canadian Vietnamese author, and I've read two works by her, Ma'an and Zhu, and both of those books were written in similar style. Basically, each chapter are kind of like a series. They are short vignettes of incidents or events, and I was able to read her books, like those two books of hers, very quickly. But it also left me feeling a little bit like I was wanting for more, because I felt like I was going through it too fast. But then again, if I enjoy something, I want to keep on reading it. But you know, again, like, should I really stop myself and just kind of pause between each section? Because, you know, it doesn't feel intuitive. So yeah, that writing style is something that I still just kind of like struggle with right now. But anyway, that aside, I do think that this book really offers like a lot in terms of the feelings. Okay, the feelings of nostalgia is definitely something that's discussed a lot. The feelings of longing for one's origin, one's home country, the melancholy that one experiences being somewhere where one feels foreign almost all the time, and, well, in reference to the political climate change in the US at that time, also sometimes one may even feel unsafe in certain situations, right? Due to one's own personal identity, one's identity and background. So those are the things that were described really tangibly in the book. I could really feel it. One's relationship with one's family, like how one kind of becomes or can become a bit more distant because of the differences in the culture in which the person grows up in. So that's another thing. And also one of the biggest ones as well, the role of memory, and the implication of when memory is lost, right? how does that, what does that mean if you don't even have memory of, you know, of something that you hold really dear. You don't have it physically, you cannot be there physically, and now you cannot even have the memory. So that part is I would say the sadness that one feels for that is written very, very tangibly. Yeah. The entire book actually feels quite melancholic, and so this book is probably one of the most like emotional books I've read this year, and also in recent months. So I think this book is probably going to be quite memorable to me in that sense. So yeah, I would say those are my thoughts about this book. And yeah, I wonder if you guys have read this one as well and what you think about it. If you have, I would certainly recommend this book. It is a nice book to read on a, especially if you want something quiet and very reflective, and also quite melancholic. You know, I think this book is very passionately written. Oh, and also, while I was reading this book, I kind of made a tiny reading journal. I just kind of started doing that because I thought that quite a bunch of stuff in this book were quotable. So let me just kind of read a bit. Okay, so I got my notebook here. So I just kind of read one part that I thought was kind of interesting. Okay, so here it goes. We like to ask ourselves metaphysical questions about the world, life, and man. But we ought to ask ourselves again and constantly, why fill our lives with such effort and torment when we know that we will be here only once, and when we have such a brief and unrepeatable time in this indescribably beautiful world? Yeah. So basically, that's it. I kind of like that part. I wrote something else as well, but I think I'm just going to read that one part. Anyway, that's it for this book. I'll see you again in a different video. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye.